Welcome to episode 2 of the FAFCU podcast, 3 Trees in a Pod, where we talk about all things FAFCU, plus community-related topics, local business highlights, feature member stories, financial tips, fraud prevention, and so much more. This episode, we're talking about something that always is a hot topic and a concern to our members internally and externally. That's fraud and scams. The Federal Reserve reported in 2026 that financial institutions are seeing rising fraud trends across major payment channels, with criminal tactics increasingly involving impersonation, social engineering, and credential compromise. The survey found that 60% of financial institutions reported check fraud, 75% reported debit card fraud attempts, and account takeovers was a growing concern. My name is Jason, and I'm here today with 2 guests. I have Silver from Forest Area Federal Credit Union and a special guest, Jill Nowak from TBA Credit Union. Can you please introduce yourselves and talk about your role at the credit union? Silver, let's start with you.
Hi, I'm Silver. I have been with Forest Area Federal Credit Union for 12 years. I am currently working in the loss prevention as the acting supervisor. I do loss prevention, but of course that comes with fraud, check fraud, and I don't do a whole lot of debit card fraud, but mainly check fraud and RDC fraud and takeover fraud, and anything fraud related. So work closely with compliance and anybody else that has anything that comes up. Debit card fraud as well, but don't handle that specifically.
Okay.
I'm Jill from TBA. Thanks for having me today and inviting me to join. I've been in the credit union industry for 15 years and working with fraud and scams, member education, employee education, helping prevent fraud, helping detect fraud. So at TBA, I do all things fraud. So,
That's great. So we have 2 very good experts on the topic here. So let's dive right in. I'd like to start out initially with kind of our fraud landscape, what we're looking at in this day and age. I'd like to start with what types of fraud we're seeing most often, and we're looking at 2 different geographies as far as where our credit unions are located. TBA is in Traverse City, and Forest Area we're a little bit more rural, south side of Traverse City, so we might be seeing some different types of trends. Jill, can you talk about some of the most common fraud or scams that you're seeing at TBA?
Absolutely. So one thing that we're seeing the most of right now is spoofing. So basically that's when a member is getting a text message or a phone call or an email. They're getting contacted and being told that someone is from their financial institution or from the government or from a reliable, reputable company. And then in the conversation, they're getting the member to reveal banking information, personal information, and information enough to potentially compromise their banking account. They're also in some incidences convincing the member to, withdraw cash or do wires and then use that cash to either purchase Bitcoin or gift cards. And so once the member is actively doing the transaction, obviously from a financial standpoint, it's harder for us to notice because the member's actually doing it versus a transaction coming out of the account through electronic channel. And then at that point, it's a total loss to the member themselves because they're doing the transaction. So we are seeing an uptick in those types of fraud where the member is essentially committing a financial crime unbeknownst to them and, compromising their own security and safety.
And that's what the member doesn't realize. They think that there's some kind of insurance or that we can help them get their money back. And a lot of times that they get really mad at us and, well, what do we do? Can't you guys help us stop that or get it back from us? Or we didn't do this and, that's not our fault. But like she said, it's a total loss. There's nothing we can do. They're just out that money.
Because the member facilitated. Now, because this is such a high trend in our area, the Michigan State Police have posted there is several Bitcoin machines throughout the area. Most of them are at gas stations and things of that nature. There's one in the mall. And again, I think it's preying on people that don't understand what that is. And basically, it's like an ATM that turns your funds into a cryptocurrency. And once you put the funds in the machine, even the police can't get that out for you. So the police have gone in our area and posted signs basically saying, these are typical used in scam situations. So again, if somebody is approaching asking for cryptocurrency, usually it's a scam. Same thing at gift cards. If you go to the Walgreens and the Dollar Generals, you'll see now at the gift card kiosk, there will be a sign. So again, if somebody's asking to purchase gift cards, if you're getting a call from Amazon saying that, there's a fraud on your account, why would Amazon need you to buy iTunes gift cards to get, things of that nature? So it's never give out your personal information or especially banking information, even if somebody claims that they're from your financial institution, because that's a big one. It's very easy to spoof a number. I can take any number and put it in a Google and start calling people, and it looks like I'm calling from Forest Area or TBA, and it's really a scammer. So it's, kind of, what are they asking? Why would my financial institution ask me for my account and routing number, ask me for my online banking credentials, or ask me for my full card number and PIN? They should know that because they're the ones that issued me that. So they shouldn't need that to identify me. And I think that's what trips members up, is they're like, well, I was talking to somebody at the credit union and they weren't. And then they just gave out all that information, which then turns to that scammer potentially now trying to call in to the financial institution, impostoring the member. So it's kind of a twofold, like the member's giving out enough information for then that scammer to try and impersonate the member to even gain more access to the account.
Absolutely. And then it's also twofold, because then the financial institution is a victim. And speaking on somebody on the other side of the coin is loss prevention, it's leading to great losses for the institution that we can't, there is essentially nothing that we can do. Again, we can't do anything for the member. The member doesn't understand that, they are a victim of the scam, but we're also the victim, and they get very upset because then they owe us money, that money that we can't recoup because they can't recoup, and they don't understand their rights. They don't understand how they're going to pay this back, and why can't we go after the scammers, and why can't but the scammers are gone. They've moved on. So,
right. And they've used that member as what's called a money mule, which is a form of money laundering. So it's a high-tech form of money laundering. It's a high-tech form of the crime you see in the mobster movies, really, and they're using stories. So, it's not, a gangster coming up to you. You think it's a love interest, or you think it's a reputable company because
trust.
They build that trust with you, or they use scare tactics. They say, we're the federal government, or we're calling from the FBI and things of that nature to basically scare the member into doing whatever they're asked to do.
Yeah, and you both make a good point too. Like, you talk about education and being aware. Our members in the communities. A lot of there's certain trends that they're not seeing, or certain new types of scams that are out there, and the education side of it, and being aware as a consumer of kind of trusting your gut to a point of. Yeah. This seems kind of strange. Well, if it seems strange, then we live in a society where you need to trust that and call
100%.
Your credit union, call law enforcement, whatever it might be.
Absolutely. And another thing, I always tell members, as a parent, you always tell your child, if somebody's telling you to lie, they're telling you, essentially to keep a secret, they're telling you to do something bad. So if you have somebody on the phone saying that they're from the federal government, you need to go into your financial institution. You need to tell them that you're taking this money out for a home repair or for a new car. If somebody's telling you to lie to your financial institution, they're obviously telling you to do something not good. So that's also hard, is because we do have things in place to do our due diligence where we question the member. Hey, you're taking out 20 grand today and that's not normal for you. What are we doing today? And, a lot of times we get, well, that's none of your business, or, oh, it's for home repair, or this or that. But, then we'll say, like, is anybody telling you to lie to us? Is anybody telling you to do Bitcoin? Is anybody saying they're this, or this? And if the member says no, and then we give them 20 grand and they essentially go to Bitcoin, they don't realize that at that point you lied to your financial institution. So you're basically committing a financial crime.
Right. You're
so again,
involved, right?
Right. Listen for those red flags, like you said. And if somebody's trying to tell you to lie, or don't tell your family members, don't tell your husband, don't tell your family that we're on this call. Again, if somebody's trying to have you keep a secret, that's a red flag.
Absolutely.
So we kind of touched a little bit there on impersonation scams. And in some research, that's one of the biggest themes right now and growing in impersonation scams, where scammers pretend to be someone trusted. And obviously there's multiple ways to be doing that. Sometimes it's through email, sometimes it's with AI. There's voice impersonation technology out there. Why are these impersonation scams so effective, Silver? We'll start with you.
Well, because I think they rely on fear. They rely on the fear tactic. They make the members feel like they have to do this, that, the grandparent scam. You get the impersonation scam, they make them feel like it's really their grandkid that's calling. I'm in jail. I'm in the hospital. I need, Grandma, I need this money. And it makes you scared. You start to second guess your reality. Is this really happening? Are they really laying in the hospital dying, or something happened to them? So it taps into that humanity of, you're scared and you need to do this. It's a sense of urgency, because the second you feel like you're panicked, you lose all sense of reality and logic. And they want to do that. They do that on purpose.
It's like they're tapping into the emotional response of someone wanting to help, and it's a family member. Correct. And that's that's horrible. But they know. My grandmother fell for one of those. Mm-hmm. She had a phone call. My cousin was living in Colorado, and the phone call said it was a Colorado area code. Called her and sounded enough like him, and she was elderly at that point, pushing 90. Her hearing wasn't as good, and it sounded enough like him that she thought it was him. And he said, I got in trouble. I'm in jail. I just need some bail money to get out, $3,000. She drove down with, not being suspicious about it all, or she was a little bit, but she didn't think to call her daughters or someone who could have, been that voice of reason. She just wanted to help, and she drove to Western Union, sent this person $3,000, and it was gone, and there's nothing you can do at that point.
And a lot of the times they don't give you enough time to think about it like that. They make it, they
the
plan
urgency.
it that way so that you don't have the time to think about it.
Yeah, I think he was saying, I need this to get out of jail for the night, or I'm going to be staying here for whatever. There was that pressure there, that time. Yeah.
Same thing with the romance scams. They know just enough about you to make it feel like they love you, and they know your life, and they're going to build this life with you. And, it's just that human emotional that they can tap into.
Yeah, that's...
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing with romance scams, too, is a lot of these scams are kind of like hit and run. Like they want to get as much information and get you to withdraw the cash into Bitcoin, and then they're gone. A romance scam is way more difficult because
the long con.
These criminals will invest so much time. It could be months, and I had one that went on for years before they're building an actual relationship with somebody. And again, when you talk about you're playing with the heart, and everybody wants to feel loved and important, and being a healthy relationship, and they know the right things to say. And then they don't immediately ask for money. Like some of these ones where they're saying they're calling from the government or the bank or whatnot. They make sure that you're fully invested, and then the story comes. A lot of times you've never met the person. They're overseas. They have a great fancy job, or, they're in the military is a big one. And then, or they're a celebrity, or they're a famous person, things of that nature, that, again, we have to keep it secret because I'm a famous person and this and that. So again, it's, once you're involved in that, it's very easy then to say, oh, well, I need you to, I can't, a lot of it, what we see is I'm an investor, blah, blah, blah. I can't access my banking because I'm overseas. So I'm going to send you money. I'm going to have you use your account. And so I'm going to send you checks. I'm going to send you cash. I'm going to send you money, and then you then turn around and use your account, and then you send it out and pay my employees. So again, that's kind of that money muling, is members are bringing money in from an outside source that's really a fraudulent source, putting it through their account, and then funneling that money out either to a third party where they're getting cashier's checks to Joe Blow, who they think is their boyfriend's business associate, or they're sending out cash as well, and things of that, or wiring funds and things of that nature. Yeah. And realistically, it all kind of comes back to financial crime. Now the member's on the hook. So when, the scam explodes, now all of the bad business is pointing to the member being the criminal. So, and this person just thought they found the love of their life. And now, essentially, and unfortunately, because there's so much this money muling, the FBI and the police are going after the mules themselves. Because realistically, if you step back and you look at all of the evidence, there was several red flags throughout the whole course of every conversation that, that a light bulb, should have came on. So again, when you're dealing with the court of law, they're looking at the facts.
Yeah.
Right.
And if someone's in, like you mentioned, romance scams, like that's, your heart's into that, and you're like heavy emotion, and you're that much more likely to ignore red flags because you want this, you have this vision that this is great, I'm in love with this person. How they would never do something like this.
Right. Well, they even ignore the facts that sometimes they get checks in their name. They believe that they've opened a checking account in their name, and I'll ask a member, did you physically open this account? Do you remember opening this account? No. Well, then why do you have checks in your name? But they choose to ignore that. They think it's real.
Other impersonation scams that I think we see are when the scammers are impersonating the credit union, or we've gotten one, a couple times that it's Amazon, like this is your Amazon card, you have these charges, we need to clarify it through your financial institution. This one in particular that I'm thinking of, they said, hey, we're transferring you to Forest Area, hang on. They put the member on hold, and it had our hold music as they were waiting. And then someone picked up the phone, and that's when they kind of like thought something seemed weird at that point. But they went through such like the fact that they had recorded our hold music to make it seem that much more legitimate was wild. And a lot of times I feel like we imitating our credit union has been even more common. Are you seeing that?
Oh, we see that as well. Yeah. And again, like, we kind of talked about, it's how easy it is to spoof a number in a contact. So I just dealt with this week where they were getting text messages that looked like they were from us. But I'm like, okay, just because it says TBA, when you click on that, what's that phone number? That's not our phone number. It was an area code, not even in the area. And again, like, they will say, oh, I'm transferring you, like you said, to the bank, or I'm transferring you to the IRS, or I'm transferring you to a judge. It's like, how would a scam from Amazon, like, how would Amazon know to get you to your financial institution that quickly?
Right.
Like, I mean, I'm a proud Amazon Primer, but I've never had Amazon call me. I've never had, doesn't make sense for this company to be telling me this and then automatically transferring me to my bank. Because anytime I try and do business with anybody, with consumers, with, you wait on hold for hours and hours with most, businesses like that you can't get through. I don't even think you can call Amazon. Like, I don't think everything's through that. So again, it's just kind of like, does this make sense? And like you said, they impersonate the whole music. They impersonate, they'll even say, oh, well, I'm at this branch. Like, they know, and again, members are like, well, how do they know? Well, in 5 minutes, I can go online and know everything about, where the branches are located. I can get phone numbers. I can get that information through social engineering. And then we've also seen where businesses are getting impersonated, like our business members. And again, I'm like, what do you have on your websites where, CEOs of businesses have their whole profile, and then their employees are getting emails from the CEO, or their HR department is getting, hey, switch my payroll over to this other institution, because that business is putting all of their employee information on there. So again, it's, to protect ourselves, we need to keep our information as private as is possible. But it's very hard when it's a spoofing situation, because again, the member believes that they're speaking to the financial institution or the reputable company. And it's again, like, what are they asking me to do? Are they asking for account information? Are they asking for online banking credentials? Once you give that information out, you're opening the door to your account. And so nobody should ever be giving out their username and password.
Right.
Me as an
right,
and I mean, in a lot of cases, we don't even know. The employees at the credit union won't know your username or password. We can reset it, but we don't know it. So, when they're at our card information, like, why would somebody calling from the bank need your PIN number, your expiration date, your full card number? So again, it's like, what are they asking me? And does this make sense that my financial institution would actually ask me this?
And it's taking advantage of that trust again.
Right.
Like they trust their financial institution. Right. So they think, well, there must be a reason that they're asking me that, even though they might think, well, that's kind of strange, but they must be asking it for a reason.
Right.
Do you find that members, when you're talking to them about, they were spoofing or impersonation, do you find that they're surprised that could happen? Like how could it look like that phone number was coming from you or that text was coming
absolutely
from you?
They're surprised. They don't want to believe it. I mean, it's new to them. We know it as insiders, but if we wouldn't work in the business, it would be new to us too. You kind of have to work in the industry to know what we know. So anybody else, they're like, well, how does that happen? That can't be possible. And you tell them, if you get compromised, you have to take your device and have it cleaned, and they're like, well, what does that mean? And it's all foreign to the consumer. Absolutely.
So we're talking a little bit about, the technology side, but the analog side of fraud is still alive and well. Check fraud. Absolutely. Mail theft. We see a lot of check fraud coming through, which like remote deposit capture. You see checks getting deposited through mobile apps and online banking. And I found the statistic that FinCEN, which is Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, reported that financial institutions filed 15,417 specifically reports tied to mail theft-related check fraud just in 6 months last year, totaling more than almost $700 million in suspicious activity. Stolen checks were often altered in most of those and then used as templates for counterfeit checks or fraudulently signed and deposited checks, like we were talking about that remote deposit capture. In your opinion, why do you think paper checks, are still such a target?
I hate checks. I wish they'd go away like the penny. I mean, if you think about it, your check has your full account routing number. It has people put their driver's license, their social security, your address, phone number. So your whole banking profile is on that piece of paper. Yeah. And when a member deposits a check, it's not like an electronic thing. It's not instantly that we know the other institution has the money. So fraudsters like to use it because if you deposit the check and your institution gives you access right away to those funds, it can take us as an institution 3 to 7 days, sometimes longer, to know that check's not good. So now you've already sent the money to the scammer or done what you were supposed to do with the money or spent the money, and now you're on the hook for the check. And when you're talking about mail theft, again, like I always tell members, like, when members call in to order checks, I tell our service center, like, ask them why. Like, why do they want checks? And educate them on that, because it's just people think that's a more secure way, and it's not. Because think about it, you got your DTE bill. And when you get your DTE bill, they give you that great envelope that says DTE on it with their return address. And you put your statement, and you put your check, and then you walk it to your mailbox. And then what do? You put that little flag up there that says, hey, there's money in there. Come take me. You're basically waving right to the scammer, to the criminals, to come take my mail. And what they do is they open your mail. And they go through, they look for those envelopes that they know they're going to have checks in it. And, it's funny because we see that like around the holidays when grandma's sending checks and money, graduation time. Again, like the only things that we're mailing are usually our bills or our payments. Right. We're not sending letters to anybody anymore. We're using Facebook and all those other, Snapchat and things of that nature to communicate and text message. So, that is kind of, like you said, an old school way, but that's still how a lot of things are getting compromised. And again, once somebody has your check, they can take that check and wash it. They can go to walmart.com and order 1,000 checks with all of your account information on there.
Yep.
Yeah, because your bank account and your routing number,
Correct.
Your
phone number,
address.
Yeah.
address verification.
It's the gateway to the account. And think about it, when you write a check, like when you write a check at Meijer or Walmart, like they're not looking to make sure that's your check. They're just running a check.
Absolutely.
And it's cashing. So again, then the member's like, well, why did you let that check clear my account? I'm like, well, it's your check. We don't have somebody sitting there looking at every single check to see if you wrote that check or not. So everything's electronic. So I really wish checks would go away and people would
Absolutely.
use
Amen.
something like a bill pay. People are so scared to use it, but I never give my account routing number to anybody, like Verizon or my car insurance. Like, I don't let a company come in and take my money out of my account. I use a bill pay service where which is through our institution, which I'm sure you have one as well, where I'm inputting who I'm paying, and then I'm facilitating that transaction. So anytime I have a member that has a compromise, I'm educating them on the proper way to spend their money and use their money. Like, don't write checks. Use these other services. Use your debit card or credit card more than you're using an ACH, where you're giving out your account and routing information. And again, is somebody asking you to do a wire? A wire is a high-risk transaction. We can't get that back.
Absolutely.
Is somebody asking you to buy a cashier's check? Again, that's not something that people normally do. And cashier's checks are kind of the same. They take even longer to process. So people think if they're getting a cashier's check that's guaranteed funds. No, because we see more fraud with cashier's checks than we see in a regular check. So,
Agreed.
Especially business members. I mean, they write a large volume of checks. So it's like, hey, let's use other things than writing checks to everybody, because every check you write, it's basically a free pass to your account.
I wish businesses would take away checks, but they never will, I don't think. And that's to her point. Businesses sometimes take longer to reconcile a book. So if they have fraud, it takes them longer to recognize where the fraud's at. So it can take even longer for them to catch up with that. And it's
And it's harder to get that back. It's
Right.
not protected like
It's not.
the Visa channels or the ACH channels. So you
Any
have
of
to
the
file
RTP channels, right.
police reports, and you have to prove that you didn't write that check. So
Right. And then you have to go through the process of, stopping all the checks you had and opening and closing accounts for those, and it's horrible. And then to the other point, the member, again, they're like, well, we're not, we didn't write this check. This wasn't our check. We're the victim. And it's even harder to fight and combat that and explain that to them when you're taking losses on checks.
What are some common ways that criminals get their hands on checks, like physical checks, or are they doing it a different way?
Oh, like she said, the mail. For sure, that's probably
Taking them right out of
yeah,
Right out
take
of the
them,
mailbox?
Take them out of your mailbox.
or they can just order them. Like she said, you can go online and order stock checks if they have your information.
then they create their own out of that
They
blank.
create them, and then they will email them to people or send them through text, and then the member will just take the picture of it and send it through the RDC channel. There's so many different ways you can do them, because Staples, you can order checks through Staples. You just have to have somebody's information to put on a check.
Yeah. Do you leave your checkbook in your purse
Yeah.
or your
Right.
wallet, in your car? Like, again, it's keeping that information safe and secure. But again, as long as I have somebody's account routing information,
Right.
I can create
Right.
checks.
You could open. A criminal could put any
Anybody's
financial
name.
institution's app on their phone,
Yep.
enter in that information, and they have basically a clone of that person's account information on their app on their phone,
Right.
which then they can do the remote deposit, things like that, and start just accessing that person's
Right.
account.
It's, again, keeping your information safe. Don't give out that information.
Correct.
If you're not giving out your information, nobody can take it.
Yeah.
But think about it. Like, when we just give out our information freely and don't think about it. You go to Starbucks, they want your name. You're giving information. You go to the pharmacy to get your prescription. They want your date of birth. That's a piece of information. You anywhere you go, you buy a shirt at Kohl's. What's your email address? You're giving out information, and all that stuff's stored in a database. And we know that there's so many companies and things that get data breaches. So your social security number is not secure anymore.
Oh, it's on the dark web.
Right. I
like
mean,
guaranteed.
I can literally take your name and put it in Google and know where you live and who your kids are, and it's who's using that information. And unfortunately, social media has done that to us, because we have so many people who are using like Facebook, and if your Facebook isn't secure, I had a neighbor whose house got robbed. Well, they were posting they were in Hawaii for 2 weeks.
Right.
So, they know that their house was, knew that their house was empty. And if you're friends with everybody and everybody can see your profile, and that's how a lot of our members are getting scammed, is through social media, like through Marketplace, purchasing things that are not real, and sending payment to hold a car or a puppy or this or that, or somebody buying something from you and saying, hey, I'm going to send you money up front. I'm going to send you Cash App money or Venmo money. And then you get this money thinking it's from, the person who's buying your couch. And they're like, oh, I paid you too much. Send it back. Well, what they did is they sent you fraudulent funds. And now you just sent that back to them. And now Venmo in 3 days is going to come back and get those fraudulent funds that you received. And now you're out. And no one came and picked up your couch.
Interesting.
So, it's just, we're sharing so much of ourselves out there. And we don't even realize it.
Yep.
Right.
I mean, it happens.
Yeah. And how many times a day do we hand over our card?
Right.
When we buy our coffee, when we get our sandwiches, when we're getting gas, whether it's to a person or into a machine, our information is being captured. So,
Yeah. It's scary.
it is very scary.
So on that, like kind of continuing the technology side of cards and, our information that's out there, something that is been a little bit popular the past few years is artificial intelligence. And good or bad, it is also contributing to different kinds of fraud. Are we seeing any, and this is kind of, we're in different areas, so there could be some difference here, but are there any AI influenced types of fraud, not necessarily impersonation scams, because we've heard about deep fakes and all that. That's kind of really high level. But even if it comes down to, AI voice impersonations or things along those lines, Silver, are you seeing anything in the forest area realm?
I have not. I mean, if we have, I haven't heard about it yet.
Okay. Jill, anything on?
I mean, we, not personally, but just from other institutions in our area, like websites being AI'd, and things of that nature. So you think you're getting on the institution website, but it's an AI version.
Okay.
Again, with like, we've seen it where individuals are trying to open accounts online with AI information type of thing. Trying to open fraudulent accounts to do fraudulent activity type of thing.
That makes sense.
And again, like you said, just hearing about, members getting, AI like spam calls and
Right.
things, those kind of generated.
Yeah, that probably
calls.
happens.
Yeah.
Here too.
Yeah.
And I've heard about the AI voice cloning. That's been something that's becoming more popular, and that kind of goes back to the impersonation scams, because a lot of times it's a family member. They're cloning a grandson or daughter, a mom that is saying, oh, I broke down. Can you send me money right now? And, your own family member, it sounds just like you.
Right.
And, maybe that hasn't quite reached us here in Northern Michigan yet, but those are things that are real, and it's not, if it's going to happen here, it's going to
It's
happen.
going to
It's
happen.
when.
Yeah,
And
it's
think
when.
about it. And a lot of that stuff is gathered again from social media. If you're posting your daughter's recital and she's singing, or your kids are having cute conversations and you're posting that, like we post so many, we don't just post pictures anymore, which is a whole nother thing. We post videos and, we're making podcasts and we're doing with TikToks and things of that nature. We're
Filter our voices.
Yeah. And even like, we talked about romance scams and celebrity impersonations where, nothing, our information isn't safe. Our voices aren't safe. Our faces aren't safe. So it's just like, what are we doing? And like, I always tell people like, and I'm kind of like the Facebook police, like I'm on social media, but like, I'm very limited. Like I only have maybe like 50 friends, but they're actual people that are my friends. I'm not friends with people that I was in kindergarten with.
Right.
If you're not in my circle, then and not everybody can find me.
Right.
Or see me. I tell people, don't use your real name, don't say I live in Traverse City and I work here and I just checked in here. Like, what are you putting out there that people can take from you? And, they have those little quizzes like, oh, what's your pet's name? And, oh, where did you and your spouse meet? Like, you are literally giving security questions when you answer those things.
Yeah.
It's like, don't be giving people like, oh, I've been married or I've been, like how long those things are happening, because then again, just if that information gets in the wrong person's hands, they can know so much about you in just a short amount of time.
Yeah. And word of advice from me, because I did this once, is, depending on how much public accessibility you have shown on your social media accounts, but put your name in.
Google
Facebook.
yourself. Yeah.
Search, even I searched myself on Facebook and I found some guy who was me, but lived in London, like in the UK. And there was a picture of me that he had just downloaded. And my social media is pretty locked down.
Yeah.
But all he needed is one picture
Of you?
of
It
me.
was you.
He was me.
Yeah.
And it was an old picture.
Yeah.
And I looked at it and I was like, I look at some of the comments that were on his profile and it was very suspicious, reported it, and it got taken down. But those are lingering out there, and you might be surprised. You look up your name and see who's out there that could
I'm
be
going to have to
impersonating
try
you.
that now.
Because they do that, and then they reach out to your friends and family
Right.
and ask, and people see your profile picture and they say, "Oh, I know this person," and then all of a sudden they have everything that you have secured behind your, this only shows to my friends.
Right.
Now they have access to your friends list, and they can go through that, and as soon as they have access,
demand money or whatnot. And that's why I say, like, if somebody's friend requesting you, like, it might not be your friend. And I've had that happen. We're like, well, it was my friend and she wants me to be a part of her business. And I'm like, no, that's your friend's Facebook images are stolen. You're getting a fake profile. And again, how many friends do they have? What are they posting? Like, if it's very general, limited information and all you're seeing is various images, then and they have 12 friends, it's probably a spoof thing. So do the old fashioned, like actually call that person and make sure that you're speaking, especially if the friend all of a sudden is now asking for money or
ask them something that only they would know about you. Like, where did we meet?
Yeah.
What was our teacher in
right.
second
Well,
grade?
yeah. Right. And as long as you hadn't posted that on social media, so like I said, unfortunately, we're kind of our own worst enemy when it comes to being frauded or scammed, because we're sharing our lives with strangers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It is. And you
Man,
trust.
that is
People are
scary.
so trusting,
are.
and then that's the vulnerability that we have a lot of times. So, so let's talk on the credit union side, the financial industry, credit cards, credit unions, banks. There's so much involved in fraud prevention. There's so much that we can do. A lot of that is at the education side, but let's talk a little bit about additional things that we're doing for credit unions and how to protect our members and our communities. I have another little factoid here. The National Credit Union Association in 2025 Cybersecurity and Credit Union System Resilience Report, I'm not saying that more than once, released just last month in April. It states that cybersecurity remains a top supervisory priority and highlights credit union system resilience, risk assessments, targeted examinations, and education as part of strengthening preparedness. So some of that is obviously internal and us creating systems that will catch red flags, our frontline staff, but also that education part to our member base, doing things like this, that we're getting the word out. What are some tools or processes that, and we'll start with Silver, like that we're doing as a credit union to help kind of be that frontline block with our contact center or with Evergreen?
Well, I try to teach and put in everybody's minds, ask questions. I mean, we have to ask questions. That's our first defense. And then look at the transaction history. Be aware of, if you're going to cash a $10,000 check and this member has $5 in their account, we need to be putting holds on those. Education is important, like we've stated. I like to look at log-on history and how many times they've been looking in their account. That's an important thing. Why are they wanting to do what they're doing? Are they being coached? Is there somebody talking in their ear? If they're coming in and there's somebody with them and all of a sudden there's been nobody with them before and there's somebody having them do their transactions. Internal processes, once it's already happened, we do have things in place that we lock down. I mean, we have to take certain controls away. They get restricted on things after the checks have come in, and we have to take check cashing away or make cash only accounts, take their online banking away, such things as that. And unfortunately, that doesn't always make our membership happy, but
Right.
as we get further and further along and more losses, those are just things that we have to do. But we try to get out into the community and teach this before it happens. But the most important piece is educating. I mean, educating our staff to ask the hard questions, like Jill said it, because there's always a story behind it. I mean, the member isn't going to do something out of character for no reason at all.
Right. And as a member, if I'm calling in and, you know, whoever I'm talking to, the service representative, is asking me these questions, it's not because you're upset with me,
Right.
or that you're trying to ruin my day.
Right.
Those are things we're trying to protect the member from
Right.
a potential fraud. Maybe it's not, but
Right.
it's worth putting up those guardrails to make sure that they aren't taken advantage of.
Absolutely. And I always state to the member, this is for your protection as well as ours. Because if this money comes back, what are you going to be able to do to pay us back? You know, are you going to be able to pay us back? And if you can't, then, you know, then you're in a sticky situation. So we need to look out for you as well. Most of the time they understand that, but sometimes they say, well, you know, it's my money. I can do what I want. Why are you holding it from me? And then we just say, this is a risk assessment that the credit union has to take. I'm sorry. You know, you just try to explain it. But
And Jill, do you have similar systems in place?
I mean, we have a third party system that we use that basically looks for unusual behavior in members' accounts, and that'll flag me to do some further investigation. Again, it's training the staff, not only just your frontline staff, but your lending staff. You know, anybody who works for the financial institution. You know, I might be the fraud investigator, but I try and train everybody. We're all fraud investigators because I'm only one set of eyes and ears. We all have to have our eyes and ears open all the time. And then also working with our marketing team to get out in the community and partnering with you guys and doing things like this. And we have an organization in Northern Michigan where all of the credit union security staff meets once a month and collaborates and talks about things. Because again, if it's happening at TBA, it's just a matter of time before it happens at Forest Area and vice versa. So really getting out in the community, you know, working with the local high schools and their financial classes and things. And because again, fraudsters don't discriminate. They're going to target anybody from, you know, a minor account to, you know, to somebody that's, you said your grandmother or your mother, like in the 90s, like, you know, they're going to try whoever they can. It's, you know, that's why it's called phishing. Like they're going to throw that out there to see what they can get. So, you know, I'm constantly trying to educate myself. You know, when I started in credit unions 15 years ago, there wasn't Bitcoin. You know, so it's keeping up on, you know, trying to be one step ahead of the scammers. You know, and it's hard because, again, like I have a full-time job to protect our members and to save them money and to educate our staff and to educate them. But they also have a full-time job, and that's to take money.
And it is a full-time job. They dedicate their lives to doing that, and then only that.
Yeah, and I think I always recommend anybody who is experiencing scams or fraud to visit the Federal Trade Commission site, the FTC.gov. There is, you can report scams there, even if it wasn't banking scam, even if they just gave out a social security number or driver's license or bits and pieces of information where it wasn't affecting their account. I tell them to report it because they track it, they track the areas, they you know, investigate it themselves, and it also gives the membership step-by-step tools, like basically a checklist, like, okay, I gave out my social security number. What can I do to protect that? You know, what can I do to protect myself? How can I get myself out of this situation? And it's a great site to help safeguard yourself. So even if you're not been a scam victim, you know, go to that site and use those. I have my social security number, you know, frozen with the credit bureaus. I've never been scammed, but nobody can do a loan or anything, you know, with my social security. I have my children's as well because, funnily enough, like minor social security numbers get compromised and they don't find out until they're going to college or trying to buy their first home that their social security number is compromised. So it's just, unfortunately, we kind of have to be, even though we have people that work at the financial institution that are trying to protect you, you really have to protect yourself. You really have to know what's going in and out of your account. You have to use online banking. Like we offer online banking that gives you alerts every time you use your debit card, every time something comes in or out, it's going to tell you. We don't know where you're spending your money. So we might not necessarily know it's fraud because we don't know what you're doing.
Right.
You know what you're doing. So be aware of what's going on in your account. It's your money. Be aware of where it's coming and going. Don't just wait for your monthly statement. Check it on the daily. Use alerts. Put extra security cautions through your online banking, things of that nature. So unfortunately, we kind of have to be our own advocates. We're here to support and help and get you out of the situation and try and prevent it. But again, it's your money in the end. We can't,
Yeah, use the resources available. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And one point I'll circle back to too is that, and a lot of people might be surprised, but as credit unions, we work together. We do have a network, and this is one of many things, but that we do get together and try to share ideas and thoughts and issues that are coming up to help our community and our members especially. And that's something that, a lot of people would be surprised that credit unions actually work together.
Right.
Yeah, we're not competitors.
No, we're more like siblings.
Well,
We might have a little rivalry.
Yeah.
But.
And I think a lot of times too, you could be a member at multiple institutions. So, and we are, in Northern Michigan, we are a smaller community. So you might have memberships at multiple locations. So if we're all kind of doing things the same way, we really look to other credit unions to say, hey, they're doing a podcast. How cool is that?
Right. All right. So one question, I'll ask this of each of you before we wrap this up. If a member thinks they've been scammed, Silver, what is the first thing that they should do?
How are they being scammed? There's different, have they given their social security number out? Because if they have, they should block it on with the credit bureaus. That's what I would tell them to do. If they've given their account information out, they should, think about closing their account and getting a new account. I mean, they should contact the FTC, like she said. There's different things they could do. It depends on how much information they've disclosed,
right,
and how they've been scammed. So that will determine what I would advise them to do.
Should they be scared to contact us
Absolutely.
or law enforcement?
Absolutely. And they can contact anybody. They don't have to contact us. If they want to contact another credit union, if they want to contact law enforcement, if they want to contact anybody, they should reach out to somebody, though. They should reach out to anybody for help. But they can reach out to anybody here, even if they're not a member of ours. If they don't, if they know us or know somebody personally that works here and they just want to call us. We'll help anybody. I mean, you don't have to be our member, but they should reach out.
Yeah, that's what
to
I'd say.
Any credit union.
Yeah. If you think you're being scammed, especially if you're giving out bank information, call your financial institution. Yeah. Don't call the number they gave you.
Right.
Call the number, even you got to be careful. Google. You could Google something and, that's a whole nother, we probably do a whole nother podcast on Google searches. But, make sure you're calling the reputable number that and give him the information. Again, the more information we have of what you did, the better we can help you.
Right.
And it's tell us and we'll direct you. Okay, I think we need to get law enforcement involved, or we need to, go to the Federal Trade Commission. And I keep things, on hand, a checklist for our membership as well of, kind of give them a playbook of what to do. But, again, it's just education. And hopefully we can get out there and after today, people are listening and go, oh, yeah, I get these weird text messages or something, And again, be careful what they're telling you to do. Especially if they start asking you to hey, go to your app store and download this Share Any or this or that, or I need you to download this Cash App. Don't be doing any. If somebody's calling you and then having you do things, it's a red flag.
And I'll add that no one should be embarrassed to speak up about it
absolutely.
either. It can be embarrassing if someone falls for a romance scam or any kind of scam. There's a stigma, but people need to understand that they're not alone. That millions of people have encountered this, and it's helpful to speak out.
Right.
And they don't need to be embarrassed to talk to people about it and share their experience, because that additional awareness can be helpful to someone else. You might be preventing them from falling for a similar scam.
If it's happened to you, it's happened to somebody
else.
else.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you're not the first. Yeah, exactly.
And I tell that to every member because they say, oh, I feel so stupid. I feel so ashamed. It's don't. I have a full-time job because this is happening. You need to let your neighbors know, let your children know, let somebody help you to make sure that this doesn't happen again. And your story can save somebody. It's I rather, tell the story than have it happen to somebody else. If your neighbor fell for it too, how sad would you feel that you could have prevented that? So I always tell them share your story and get it out there. And, you could be preventing somebody else from falling victim as well.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if we're talking about it and the scammers know that we're talking about it, then now they're going to have to come up with a new scam.
Yeah,
they can't
better
do
watch
that.
their
They
backs.
can't do that one anymore. I mean, and it's funny enough that like, people still think that Ed McMahon's coming to their house with the balloons and a giant check, So like educate, like that's not a thing. You're not going to win Publishers Clearinghouse. It's
Yeah.
not happening. If it's too good to be true, it's too good to be true.
Yes.
So if somebody's telling you that, then maybe talk to a friend and say, hey, I just got a letter from Publishers Clearinghouse and I won $18 million. Like, tell somebody
Yeah.
because
Right.
they're probably going to see the red flags, or even a relationship scam. They're going to see the red flags that you don't.
Yeah.
Oh, he doesn't want to meet you, or he can, or this stuff keeps happening. Like, let somebody help you.
Well,
Yeah.
fraud hides in secrecy. It depends on
Correct.
secrecy. That's what it depends on.
Great point. Great point. Well, this has been awesome. Tons of great information. Some very enlightening on some of current trends and what's going on in fraud today, because it is ever changing. And we could do entire series of podcasts about this. But I think one of the main points that if anyone takes anything out of this is as a member or non-member, take things slowly. Don't ignore red flags. Be careful. Don't be afraid to call and reach out to someone else. Verify, because as soon as you start down that path, it's just that much easier to go down a path that you can't return from, and then you could potentially lose a lot of money. Well, I want to thank everyone who's listening to our podcast for tuning in to 3 Trees in a Pod. Just be sure, if you're listening on Spotify, be sure to follow so you get our updates and listen to future episodes. If you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe to our account, and so you don't miss future episodes. And I want to thank you, Silver and Jill, for joining us in the podcast. I appreciate it.
Thanks
you
for
for
having
having
me. Yeah, it's
All right.
great.
It was
Thank-
fun.